Every Flutter developer uses build context in nearly every build method. In short, we cannot actually live without this build context. But do you really know what is this build context and why is this so important? In the next few minutes, we're going to learn why is this so important, what is build context actually, and what are the common pitfalls of it and how to overcome that. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel, The Growing Developer. And yes, you might already know, today's topic is build context. Without wasting any further time, let's just start with the video.
The Growing Developer.
So here we have a normal application. We have this void main, run app, my app, and inside this my app, I'm returning material app, and inside that, just a plain old container, a plain old material button. Let's first understand what is this build context, and this is a problem for the later part of this video. First of all, let's create a widget tree for this, for our code. Now, as you can see on top, I have this material app. Below it, we have this scaffold. Below the scaffold, we have center, and then we have this, what do you call it, material button. Okay, and so on. I'm not gonna go deep into text and then whatever. Yep. So every widget has a context. So this material app will have a context. This scaffold will have a context. This center will have a context. Also, this material button have a context. Let's verify that very quickly. If I go inside scaffold and search for context, there you go. We have this context. All right. If we go inside material button, search for context, we have this context. Now every widget internally has its own build method, and every build method has a build context. So coming back to the question, what is this context? Now this context is not a widget, but you can say it's basically like a unique ID, right? A unique ID or location of the widget. Make sense? So whenever someone asks you what is a build context, the build context is a unique ID or location of the widget in the widget tree. Okay. Now next thing, why is this context so important and what are the common pitfalls? So this context actually helps our widget to understand where to put itself. Okay, I'm not going to, so we have a very technical explanation for it. We have our element tree, then we have our render object. So I'm not going to go deep into these trees, right? Now the next question is, how do we locate this widget? We very commonly use .of context, right? We very commonly use this .of context in day-to-day lives. Some common examples are MediaQuery.of context. Yeah, we used to use this a lot to get the device sizes and whatnot. Then we have Theme.of context, right? Then we have provider.of context. Now, what this of context does is, it will take the context, whatever context you are passing, and it will start looking upward. Yeah? It will start from this context and begin looking up to the tree to find what you are trying to find. MediaQuery.of context basically means find a media query above this context. All right. Theme.of context or provider.of context would mean find a provider above this context. Hope it is clear to all. All right. So .of context would mean take this context and start looking upward. So this is a pitfall. It won't look down, but it is going to look upward. All right. So let's come back to our widget tree. So let's say if somehow I get this context and I say from this material button, take this context and start looking for theme. Start looking for theme.of context from here. All right. And then it's going to hop. It's going to go here, center, no theme. It's going to go up, scaffold, no theme. It's going to go up. And here in the material app, it's going to find the theme. And from this material app, it will give us the theme. Okay. Similarly, let's go into our code now. Now this is a tricky question, right? So this is our material button. Let me change the color to yellow. Now this is our material button right here. All right. And we have this text tap me. And on press of it, what am I trying to do is I'm trying to look for a scaffold messenger which is above this context and show a snack bar. Okay, let's try to run this now. This is the same code that I'm showing here. We have the scaffold messenger of context, show snack bar, and let's just tap it. Oops, we got an exception. So the exception is no scaffold messenger widget found. Let's wait for 5 seconds and you can think why this failed. Why it says no scaffold messenger widget found? Because this material button is already sitting below material app, right? If you look into our widget tree, let's look into our widget tree. This material button is actually sitting here below our scaffold messenger or material app, you would say. So it should be able to find the scaffold messenger. But why this error? No scaffold messenger widget found. Well, don't be fooled by this. This context that I'm right now using to find is actually this context. And so let me change the name so you understand. I'll say material app context. Okay. And change the name so it doesn't confuse you. Now look. What were we searching for? We were using this material apps context itself and trying to search a scaffold messenger. Now, earlier it was looking that we were using this context, but we were not. We were actually using material apps context to look above it and find a scaffold messenger. And which, as you know, is not going to work. Okay. One of the most common way to tackle this problem is we introduce a builder method, or we introduce a builder widget here. So I'm going to just wrap this with a builder. Okay. And now you see this builder has its own context. Okay. And instead of material app context, I'm going to use, let me rename this. Yeah. Builder context. So we know that this is builder's context now. And let's restart this app, try tapping it, and it works. Why? So let's once again create our widget tree. All right. So this time, what we have now, same material app, scaffold, center, but now we have our builder, okay, which is exposing its own context now. And then we have our material button. Okay, let's look right here. Even though material button has its own context, please pay attention here. Even though material button has its own context, we are not able to access it as it sits inside material app. Here we only have material app's context. So we introduced a builder method. We introduced a builder widget. What this builder widget does is it exposes its own context and moves your widget, whichever widget you're wrapping with builder, a bit down in the widget tree, one step down. So as you can see here as well, this builder method actually pushed this material button below. And because this builder has the context and it exposes for us to use, we were able to use this and successfully call scaffold messenger, and it worked. All right. So now what's the other way to tackle this problem whenever you are using .of context and you're not able to find the widget, the ancestor, right? Instead of this builder, what we could have done is created a new stateless widget. Let's say my button. All right. Let's not care about the names yet. Cut this. And sorry. Return this from here. Context. And don't bother about the name. And there you go. Let's try this again. It still works. We don't have the builder, but it's the same thing that builder did. Builder exposed the context right there, but when we created a new stateless widget in a separate class, this exposed a new context. And this context is actually, as you can see here, below material app. This context, this is sitting here, and it can then travel up to material app and find the scaffold messenger or theme or what, let's say some root widget. That will be all for today's video, and hope this clears this air about this build context and you are able to answer this much more confidently. Like I usually sit in the interviews and ask this question, what is build context? And trust me, 90% of time, I don't even get a correct, confident answer. Build context is something that we as Flutter developers cannot live without. It's a core concept, and we should actually know what is this build context. So hope after watching this video, next time if you are sitting in an interview and someone asks you what is build context, you are much more confident and you have much more data to discuss about build context rather than a simple definition like it's an address to the widget. No man, it's much more than that. And thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you are having a nice day. Bye-bye.